I leave you with a little bit of motivation. So I'm going to tell you mostly my story. I am not the smartest person in the room. I'm not a doctor or anything like that. I am an athlete. The former UFC Women's Bantamweight World Champion is where most of you might know me from. Some of you might know me from Celebrity Big Brother. I did win season 3 of that. Okay, so enough about me as I go on about myself. I am a Tacoma, Washington native, born in Tacoma, Washington, probably about as far as you can get from here now that I think about it. I live in Las Vegas. I have 2 beautiful children, a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, 5-year-old girl, 3-year-old boy. But my story started, I would really say, at age 15 when I joined the boys wrestling team. And at that time, there was no female wrestling. So I was sitting in English class. My best friend looks over at me and she says, "Do you want to go out for wrestling?" And I said, "They don't have a women's wrestling team. How could we do that?" And she said, "Well, there's some rule that if they don't have the women's sport offered, that you can just join the boys team." And I was like, "Do you really think that's a good idea?" Well, whether it was or it wasn't is debatable. But the point is, I went home and I asked my mom, "Can I join the boys wrestling team?" And she looked at me and she said, "Well, I don't think you're going to like it." And I said, "Okay, but can I still try?" And she said, "I'm not going to tell you that you can't do anything that you want to do. So if you want to go do it, fine." She said, "But under one condition. We are not telling your father." And I said, "Done, deal." So I showed up the next day, and I didn't know what I was going to get myself into. And I didn't even have wrestling shoes, as a matter of fact, because my mom didn't think that I was going to stick with it. But I showed up, and it was very clear there was not going to be a welcoming party. I looked at the coach, and I said, actually, he looked at me, and he said, "What are you here for?" And I said, "Well, I'm here to wrestle." And he said, actually nothing. I don't think he said anything. Turned around, called over one of the most experienced guys on the team, and he blew a whistle. And I was in my first wrestling match. It was very clear that I was not going to have the welcoming party I guess I was hoping for. But I'll tell you what, after my first practice, I went into the locker room, and I was with my friend Sharon, and we looked at each other, and we had mat burns on our face, and our hair was like missing chunks, you know, we got hair ripped out. We didn't know how to put our hair up for wrestling. It was an experience, and we were like, that was awesome. We loved it. I was no better at wrestling than basketball, which is also part of the reason why I went out for wrestling, because I can't play basketball to save my life. Big difference, though, is that I was passionate about wrestling. And so I guess what I want to share with my story is the mindset that I think is important to have moving through life. Is that what is the worst thing that can happen? Right? What's the worst thing that can happen? You're going to see that. I went out for wrestling, and I was like, what's the worst thing that can happen? Well, I stuck with it all 4 years, and my senior year, I ended up getting a letter, not because I won enough matches, but just because if you do it for 4 years, you get a letter on your Letterman's jacket. I was still proud of it. I didn't win, I don't think I won a single match against any male competitors, because obviously they're going through puberty, and so physical differences there. And then I didn't have any experience, you know? Most of them had been wrestling at least since middle school. Needless to say, I didn't win any matches, but I only lost my first match against a female, and then every match after that, when I got a chance to wrestle against females, I did. And by my senior year, there was actually a women's state wrestling tournament that I took a part of, and I won that as well. People will ask me, "Miesha, what is your biggest accomplishment?" And I bet you if I asked the room, you'd probably say my UFC world title, right? I mean, that's got to be it. In my humble book, if I look back through my entire life of the accomplishments that I had, it would actually be my senior year of wrestling. I sat down, and the coaches were announcing all these awards, you know, best wrestler, most valuable. You know, of course, I was not going to win any of those. I could barely win a match. But when they got to the athlete that embodies the presence that you want to have on the team, it's not about accomplishments. It wasn't about wins. It was about somebody who you would just say has the spirit, right? It was kind of that award. And they called my name, and I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that the girl who they didn't want on the team, who they tried to get quit, that they had embraced me in a way to where I was actually going to win. I was going to win. I was going to win. I was going to have a victory in that moment. And it taught me a lot. That taught me a lot. That losses are just learning experiences, right? I lost so many times in so many matches that I set different goals. You know, sometimes it's like we set these goals about we have to win, right? It's like if we don't win, we didn't do it right. That could never be my prerogative. It couldn't be the goal that I had because I wasn't going to win. So you know what my goal was? To not get pinned. That was my goal. That was how I won, because if I got pinned, I gave up 6 points against the team. And if I just lost by points, I only gave 5 points to the other team. That was my goal. And I got really good at that, by the way. I didn't get pinned very often, even when I wrestled on varsity. So let me fast forward. 19 years old, I end up going to college, right? My parents are sending me to college, paying for my education, hoping, right, that I'll probably come away, you know, with some degree that I'm going to make money and, you know, have a great successful career, all these things. Well, my freshman year of college, my dorm mate, Rosalia, was like, you got to come out to this mixed martial arts club sport. And I said, what is that? And she said, well, you know, you learn about martial. And I said, no, thank you. I don't. It just, you save your breath. It's not for me, right? It's not for me. I don't want to do it. Well, she kept bothering me about it. And I said, all right, fine. I understand what's going to happen here. You're going to pester me until I show up. So I'll go. I'll humor you. I'm not, you know, not that arrogant. I'll go. So I went, and on my very first day, I learned how to choke people. And it was fantastic. You see where I'm going with this? Yes. Immediately I was intrigued, and I said, you know, I think there might be something here for me. I'm going to build on the wrestling that I have, and I am going to learn how to choke people, and I'm going to continue that. 3 weeks later, I went to my very first live MMA event, and I had a visceral reaction. How many of you have watched MMA? Okay, great. How many of you have watched MMA live? Okay, it's a different experience, right? It's a totally different experience. So you go there live. It's an amateur event. I mean, these are like two caged wild cats just fighting in there. And I was like, whoa, I was blown away. I didn't understand what mixed martial arts was about, and I think until I went to that event. And at the end of that, Destiny found me again. And they said, hey, in a couple weeks, we're going to have an all-female fight card. And of course, at that time, I'm going to date myself, that was 2005. They were having a really hard time filling an all-female fight card. So they called out to the audience. And of course, who made their way down and signed up to fight in a couple weeks? I do not claim to be the brightest bulb on the tree. Okay? It's not one thing that you will ever hear me claim to be. I went down, I signed up, and a couple weeks later, I had my very first fight. I did not know how to strike. I had never hit anybody, nor had I ever been hit. So I took this girl down in the first round. Easiest takedown of my life. I mean, I was shocked because she just fell over, and I had never experienced that in my entire career of wrestling. I could never get takedowns because I was wrestling these, big, strong guys. So when she fell down, I was like, oh my God. And I just pinned her the whole time. I didn't even remember you could punch on the ground. That's how inexperienced I was. But the second round, they wisened up a little bit. Put me in a Muay Thai clinch, which is basically a hold behind your neck with the forearms they put on your collarbone here. And I didn't know what it was, and I didn't know how to get out of it. So she's holding me here, and she begins to knee me in the face, which at the time for amateurs, there were no rules. They do have rules now to keep amateurs a little safer. But at that time, no. I was just a guinea pig. So what happens is my nose gets smashed clean on. And I am still trying to take her down. I think I'm diving at her ankles at this point. She spins around, she gets on my back, and she begins to throw punches. And one of them hits me in my ear. And I think this is the only time ever in a fight that I actually lost my temper. I'm a pretty chill person. If you ever meet me in person, other than up here talking, you'll say, like, she's got such a chill vibe. I hear that all the time. I don't know how you're a fighter. You know, you're so nice. Like, when I take my kids to school, like, we just don't understand. Like, you're so nice. How do you hit people for a living? And I was like, well, I'm nice because I can hit people for a living. That's the secret. That's the trick. That's what I really hope you guys get out of here, or at least hit a heavy bag, you know? And by the way, women need to be able to hit things. I mean, I think that's a given for men, but can we just talk about women hitting things for a minute? It is awesome. Just throw some gloves on sometime and go, like, I don't care. If you don't have a heavy bag, go punch a pillow or something. It's just great. Okay, so back to the story. Second round, they wise up to this. I'm in this Muay Thai clinch. My nose is shattered. I am bleeding everywhere. And eventually, I'm on my elbows and my knees. She's on my back. She's hitting me in my ears. And there is blood pouring from my nose. And this pool of blood is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's like time is standing still. And I think in that moment, I had this big switch in my mentality. And I said, I know what I'm here to do, and it's to kick her ass. So I need to get out of this position, and I need to reverse this, and I need to fight. This is not a wrestling match. I have to fight for my livelihood right now. So I did just that. I kind of bucked her, like imagine a bull in a bull rider in a rodeo, and she falls down into this, guard position before me, and I am raining down punches. And there is blood all over me, all over her. I think the audience was shocked. My corner was shocked. My poor mom was definitely shocked. She was sitting in the audience. I think I aged her 10 years that day. But at the end of the second round, something had changed. And I would say that was the day that a fighter was born. And I would say that if it wasn't for wrestling, I wouldn't have known how tough I am. I may never have lived up to my full potential. And I think that's one thing that if my story can inspire any of you to make a change in your mentality, it's to understand that you probably have a potential that is beyond what you've set forth for yourself. So don't be afraid to take risks. Please, you guys, don't be afraid to do that. I hope that you're not, but I think oftentimes we are. I think I've failed so many times I've lost count. And I started my MMA career with a loss. And it was tough and it was hard. And I had to go home, you guys, to my grandparents because it was Christmas break. It was lovely. Do you know what my face looked like? It looked like a lion and a raccoon had a baby. That's what I looked like. I didn't even have any indentations in the side of my face anymore by my nose. It was just flat and these giant black eyes. And I didn't really have a leg to stand on when they were like, you're never going to do that again, right? That was a terrible idea. And I mean, I heard it all because they thought I wasn't listening. But of course I was, because I was mortified. I was embarrassed. I just felt very misunderstood as well. But little did they know that I was already planning my next move in this sport. And there was no UFC for women at this time. There wasn't even Strikeforce. There was no foreseeable future. The only thing that I knew was that I had to do better than I did that time, and that I could do better. So, of course, I went back. I started training again, much to my family's dismay, my parents' dismay. And I won my next 6 fights. I turned pro. I lost my pro debut. I won more fights to get into to Strikeforce. And then, you guys, when I got to Strikeforce, do any of you remember Strikeforce? Anybody know that? Yeah, a few of you? All right, we have some good followers of the sport here if you remember Strikeforce. So I got brought in to lose to a hometown girl, up a weight class, a 2-time K1 kickboxing world champion, and they thought she was just going to knock me out, right? I mean, I was going to be easy work. I was a wrestler. I didn't have striking. I went in there. I took her down every single round. I pounded her out, and I won that fight, and that got me my first Strikeforce contract. And then I fought in Strikeforce until it got absorbed into the UFC. And then I lost to Ronda right before it got absorbed to the UFC. You guys, anybody seen that fight? Yeah. I figure you guys did if you're sticking around for this. So I got my arm hyperextended. My arm was bent in this way, but that way. So it was a pretty gnarly injury. But again, I just thought, look, there's something here. There's something that not everybody's going to understand why I continue to come back for this and what it is about it. Not everybody has it. Not everybody gets it. And you know what's interesting? There's a part of your brain, let me see if I can say this right. It is the mid-anterior cortex. I'm going to get it wrong. I'll come back to that word. See, I told you I'm not the smartest. But point is, it's a part of your brain that they're discovering grows when you do hard things. How cool is that? There's a part of your brain that will actually grow when you do tough things. It's amazing to me, and I think that must be what happened. It must have been that little trigger, that little stimulation in the brain. It's like when you do something that you don't think you can do, that other people don't think you can do, and you keep showing up for it every single day. So I think maybe that part of my brain now hopefully is a little bigger than most people's. Except I still struggle to get in a cold, like an ice bath. That is like the hardest thing. I'd rather be in a full-on fist fight. I'm telling you right now. A full-on fist fight than get into an ice bath. I don't know what's wrong with me. Breathing. Yeah, she said breathing. I do a lot of breathing. I mean, I breathe the shit out of the ice baths, but they're still just a real struggle for me. So I don't know. I haven't overcome that one yet. Maybe I'm not meant to. Maybe it's just meant to be that hard thing that you do that not everyone else is willing to do. So I guess what I want to leave you guys with, because I think I ended up rushing this just a little bit because Gary went over a little bit, and that's okay. So I don't want to rush too much, but I do want to open it up to questions if you guys have anything for me. And other than that, I was just gonna say when I won my UFC world title, that was the pinnacle of my career against Holly Holm. I'll run you guys through that real quick. I look at myself in the mirror and I say to myself before I walked out, I said, this is the last time that you will look at yourself and not have a belt wrapped around your waist. I manifested it. And I said, it's going to happen. I have to make it happen. Tonight is the night. I will find a way. I will die before I don't let this dream come to fruition. Because mind you, I had already lost my belt in Strikeforce to Ronda. I had another chance to try to recapture it in the UFC, and I had lost it. And I thought, this chance will never come again. It will never come again. I have to make this happen. I have to do or die. Tonight is the night. And I walked out there, and I lost the first round. And I won the second round. And I narrowly lost the third round. I couldn't get her down. And I went in the fourth round. I couldn't get her down again. I lost the fourth round. Every round that stayed standing, she won. Every round that went to the grounds, I won. We're 3 rounds to 1 round now. I'm in the 5th round, and I said, I have to throw all the game plan it's got to go out the window because I'm not able to safely get in and get a hold of her. Mind you, this is the Holly Holm that the fight prior to this, kicked Ronda's head into the ethers. So, you're just you want to be cautious. You don't want to get knocked out. But you know what I realized? I had to risk that. I had to be willing to risk the ultimate fall, the ultimate embarrassment. Because I think a lot of times, this is why I encourage you all to fail a lot. Because, try doing that on a platform with millions and millions of people watching. And then you got to live on social media. That's a whole other evil in itself. I feel so sad sometimes for the kids that have to grow up with it. Thank God I just barely missed that. So I didn't grow up with social media. But that's scary. It's really scary to be 4 rounds into a fight and think, I've got to lay all that on the line. All the scrutiny, all the hate, all the naysayers, everybody is, if I go out there and I risk everything and I get knocked out because of it, that's the worst thing that can happen. That's the worst thing that can happen. And you know what? You got to swallow that and still be okay with it. You got to swallow that and still show up. And so that's what I did in that round. I said, I'm willing to take that risk. I'm willing to take the ultimate fall. If I play it safe, I'm not going to win this fight. Might not get knocked out, but I'm not going to win this fight. I've got to go for broke. So I went out in that 5th round, and I got her down, and I got around her neck, and I tried to strangle the life out of her. And, congratulations to her because she really did go out on her shield. She's such a warrior. She did not tap. She actually passed out. So I give her a lot of credit for that. But anyways, that's when I won my Strikeforce world title. And then you know what? I went on to lose my next fight. I lost my belt. And then I lost my next fight after that, and I retired. because I was in an extremely toxic point in my life. I was facing a lot of depression, a lot of things that I will talk about now that I wouldn't talk about then. I had isolated myself from my family, my friends. I had tied my identity to being a fighter. And I think a lot of athletes do this. And I've never been a normal person by most people's metrics. So I don't know if a lot of other people do this as well, whether you tie yourself to your work or you tie yourself to something so heavily that it's like when it fails, you feel like a failure, that it becomes you. It's not a part of you, or it's not meant to be a part of you, but you let it consume you to the point where now you have attached your identity to this. That sucks. That's a really hard place to be. But I remember being there, and after losing my world title and then losing the fight after that, I was a candle that I had lit the wick on both ends, broken it open, and lit the wicks in the middle too. I was burnt out. I had nothing left. The passion was gone. Everything was just ultimate low. And I say that I actually got to a point when I knew it was really serious when I contemplated suicide. When I thought that I had lost everything. I thought that I was nothing. I was a loser. That was it. It was the end of my career. Who am I? Who is Miesha Tate? I'm Miesha Tate the fighter. What else am I? I couldn't answer that question. And when I realized that, I realized I had to change everything if I wanted to change the trajectory. And so I flipped my world upside down. I didn't know what was going to come out of it. But it was a really difficult time for me. And I said, if I want to find out who I am, I've got to take away my comfort net, which is fighting. So I'm going to retire. And so I did that for 5 years. And I really found myself in those 5 years. I started reconnecting. I think that was the first step for me, reconnecting with myself. Then I discovered the world of biohacking, and that's been a game changer. Practicing mindfulness for me, having mindful meals. Do you guys ever do that? Anybody here have a mindful meal? No? Yes? Okay, good. You are missing out. Food is so good. I just blows my mind that sometimes we don't sit down long enough to enjoy it. We rush. I was talking to this mom once. She actually went to the doctors because she was having all these gastrointestinal problems and her stomach hurt, and her doctor's like, do you sit down to eat? She's like, no, I'm always in a hurry. And he's like, that's your problem. It's like, this is all caused because you're eating way too fast and it's on the run and you're just shoving it in. Point in case is, sometimes in order to move faster, we've got to slow down. In order to be faster, we've got to slow it down. And I think that's what I've really worked on. I've worked on load management. I've worked on mindfulness. Sit down. Smell your food. Next time, please, just try it for one meal. Try it for one meal. Sit down, look at your food, smell your food, chew your food slowly, and try to taste all the different flavors. It will change your life. Because I guarantee you're going so fast through life and you're eating and you're thinking about, okay, I've got to, this is my list anyways. I'm sure it differs for everybody. Okay, laundry, kids pick up at 2:30, red light, hyperbarics. Okay, I've got, and the list, I've got to go feed the chickens. I have chickens, by the way. I think that's cool. Throw that out there. Whatever else it is that I have to do. And I'm just eating while I'm not there. Like, be here now, right? That's such a great saying. We're missing out on what life has to offer in the simplest but greatest moments. I mean, we spend a lot of time over our lifespan eating food, and if we're never present for those meals, I just feel like we're missing out. You don't learn how to be present if you can't be present for a meal, how are you present for your kids? How are you present at work? How are you present? How are you putting everything back in the gas tank? Because you're only going to be able to give as much as you put back in. So I encourage you, a mindful meal. Try it. It will change your life. Other than that, I think I'm going to open this up for questions. I don't want to take too much time. So we got about 10 minutes. If anybody has any questions, and thank you guys so much for sticking here with me. Thank you. I know Gary was the bread and butter of this, so I appreciate you all hanging out.
Take a question.
Yeah. Anybody got any questions?
So you talked about kind of taking a step away from MMA and, when you had those suicidal thoughts. So what kind of advice, you kind of touched on it, but I guess I want to go a little deeper. What kind of advice would you give to somebody that's in that place that is trying to find themselves? Because you said you found yourself. So I guess one is like, how did you find yourself, and what type of advice would you give to somebody that's in that really dark place?
Man, this is such a good question. So it's been in layers, like an onion. You're just peeling back layers at a time, or adding layers, if you will, however you want to look at it, but it's in stages. It doesn't come all at once. So for me, the first step was removing, the best that I could, removing myself from the situation that was primarily not heading me in the right direction. It was the primarily toxic. So I was in a very toxic relationship for about 9 years. And I realized that the only way to separate from that was also to separate from sport. So the reason I came back to fighting was not because I ever lost the love of the sport. It was because I lost myself. Right? So I had to find myself again. And so in order to do that, I tried to change as much as I could. And I didn't know if that was the right answer, to be honest. It's like, for any of you that have suffered from depression, and fortunately, I don't have chronic depression, but I had situational depression, which is still debilitating as long as you're in this situation. But it's like being in a pitch black room, and there's like a little tiny pinhole of light. And something's just telling you, you don't know what's over there, but it's the only thing you've got. It's the only direction you've got. Or you could just walk that way into the dark and abyss and just surrender. And fortunately, that's not a part of my personality. I didn't want to give up on myself. I didn't want to give up on life. It's not what I wanted. It's not what I wanted. But I realized when I started being in that place more often that I had to do something different. And so what I did was reconnect with people and myself. As a person, I consider that reconnection was really important. So I started to ask myself questions. What would I do if I wasn't a fighter? I don't know. Well, let's find out. What would I wear if I wasn't picking it out to please somebody else? Like, what would I, like what I'm wearing right now would not probably have fit my ex's fancy. You know what I mean? It's just, this is me. I had to find me. I had to have the confidence to go out and shop for myself. Isn't that crazy to think that? But it's so true. And some people look at me like, she's such a strong woman. And I want you to know that I'm not that different. I have found my places of strength, and I've capitalized them because I haven't let fear hold me back. But I have certainly been weak in moments and in situations. And it's holding to that little bit that you have, whatever that pinhole is. Just head that way, because if you can get in touch with your intuition, chances are it will steer you right. I think we culturally have gotten really far from our intuition. Like, we don't listen to ourselves anymore. And I think a lot of it, not to get too political or anything like that, but our education system, it doesn't help us out. Sit down, shut up, do what I tell you to. Here's your ABCs. That's all you need to know. We don't care how you feel. Sports, we don't care how you feel. Just do. Right? You have to care. You have to care about how you feel, because nobody else is gonna. And if you don't know how you feel, nobody else can help you either. You got to figure that out yourself, right? So I had to go inside. I had to answer really hard questions. And I set out on a 2-week road trip. That's what I did. I took my little 9-pound chihuahua at the time. I packed my car, and I just drove. I had no plans. I didn't know where I was going. And I just stopped wherever felt right to me. I slept on the beach. I went hiking. I ended up making my way up to Washington State. I drove up the coastline from Las Vegas all the way up the coast. And I just soul searched. And I just tried to find myself in the smallest moments. Over a glass of wine, over a dinner by myself, over a hike, over putting my feet in the ocean. And when I got to Washington State, I called my parents, and I apologized. And I said, I love you, and I miss you, and I want to reconnect. And then I called my great aunt and my great uncle, and I said, I've never really talked to you. Can I? And then I called my cousins, and I said, I'm in town. They said, come over. I ended up staying the night. I brought my circle back in, the people who loved me, who knew me before, who supported me, who didn't care about my fighting. I mean, they supported, but they weren't there for that reason. They weren't fans. They loved me for me. And I got to know stories. My grandma had already passed away by then, but she came from like 8 siblings, I think. So a few of her siblings are still alive. My great uncles, my great aunts, I had dinners with them. I had conversations with them. I brought meaning and connection back to my life. And that's where it started. And then we can spiral into having children. Oh my God, what a great motivation that is to get it together, because I know that my ceiling is my children's floor. Right? The more that I can elevate myself, the more that I can figure out how to do life best, how to perform at this right here, I can teach to my children. The fact that my daughter and I practice, she's 5.5, daily breath work. The fact that when I'm driving somewhere and my kids are fighting in the back and I'm about to lose my shit, that happens. It does. I'm not above it. And I go, and she goes, Mommy, I heard that. Are you feeling frustrated? That's a win. That's who I am. That's my purpose. That's my calling. The fact that I can do that for my children, that I can teach them something that I wasn't taught, motivates me like nothing else. And so I keep showing up every day, enjoying my life and grateful that I get to be with these little kids, and that I get to try to be my best self, and I'm still figuring it out. It's not easy. The journey's not hard. I don't know. Is there any other questions? That was a very long answer. I tend to do that. I think he's going to come and curtain hook me off of the stage here in a second. But does anybody else have anything in short? Oh. Daily routine. Okay, I was hoping it was coming. Okay, daily routine.
Was there another question?
One more. And then I'll try to make it. Oh, she got it. She said daily routine. See, I'm just making him work over here. So, you guys, I wake up in the morning. I go outside. I take my kids with me. Sometimes it's a fight, but I try to make it every single day. We get morning sunlight in our eyeballs. You just heard Gary talk about it. It's a real thing. If you're doing all the nighttime stuff, you're like, I just don't know why I'm sleeping well. It's because you're not starting at the beginning. That would be like, just like not doing a warm-up to a workout. Like, you're not setting yourself up for success. You got to start at the beginning of the cycle in the morning. Get that low ray light in your eyes, the golden light, the one that looks really good for selfies, that light. They call it the golden hour. Yeah, that one. That's the time that I try to get in front of the camera and like do all my talking and stuff. I'm like, this lighting is great. I don't even need any makeup. That's the light you want. And then I put my feet on the ground. I do my breath work. And then I go and collect my chicken eggs, and I might bake a loaf of non-enriched bread, because I have learned that from Gary as well. Organic. Bake my own stuff. 7 ingredients. I love it. Okay, I'm getting carried away here. And then I try to get in the hyperbaric chamber if I can. I do red light. I try to practice mindfulness because I'm busy. We're all busy, right? We always just have like 1,000,001 things, and I don't think the phones help because they make our brains have to work at the speed of light, basically. And I don't know if our brains were really meant to handle all of that. It feels a little overstimulating to me sometimes. I don't think we were. So how do we unplug? Nobody teaches you that. It's just go. Go, 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 go. If you want it, you've got to do it all. I disagree. If you want it, you have to learn when and how to do it and how to not do it. How to just like sometimes give people the bird. Like, that's okay too. Like, I'm not sorry, thank you, but no. And then sometimes slowing down. Like, it could be as simple as 60 seconds. Did you guys know that 3 deep breaths is the only way that we can manually override our autonomic nervous system? Breath work, actually, is the only way that we can override. So if you are feeling anxious, if you have any feelings like that that are not welcome, they're not helping you get where you want to go, they're basically just wasting your time and energy, learn how to breathe. It'll fix all of that. It's not that you're wrong for having those feelings. We're all going to have them. But how quickly can you move through them and get back to what you can control? That's been a game changer for me. So mindfulness, breath work, and I do that all, like, I'll take deep breaths multiple times throughout the day. It's just become habit now, and it's funny, it's not until my daughter started pointing it out to me. She's like, I heard that. And I was like, yeah, I'm feeling really frustrated. That it's like, but it's working, she's realizing it. And like when she has a meltdown, because she's 5 and she does that, it's like I hug her. And we both take a deep breath, and she starts to, her little mirror neurons kick on. How cool is that? You guys know about mirror neurons? Like little kids just start copying what you do. You don't have to say it. It's so cool. So being a mom is awesome. I love it. That's a big part of my daily routine. And afternoon light if I can as well. That actually minimizes the like exposure basically of the harmful exposure of artificial lighting at night. If you can get low-level light as the sun is setting, it kind of counteracts some of that. So if your kids are watching TV at night and stuff, you may want to consider getting them outside. Get them outside all the time. We spend like 95% of our time indoors. That's terrible. Get some vitamin D. That's important too. I think Gary drilled that home for you guys. So that is mostly it. If I didn't answer the question well enough, because I know that I run on a tangent, I'll be here afterwards. And tomorrow I have a signing from 2:30 to 3:30. Way over yonder, so I don't know if anybody saw me today, just a few of you did. And I will also be speaking on a panel tomorrow. So you guys check your schedules. Thank you again so much for being here. I really appreciate your time.